Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe.
Hello everyone, Brad with Pure Athlete. I am so excited to announce our newest sponsor, Guardian Sports. And here to talk about their amazing product, Guardian Caps, COO of Guardian Sports, Jake Hansen.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Yeah, we're really excited to partner with Pure Athlete here, just aligning the missions of prioritizing youth sports safety with our Guardian Cap product. The Guardian Cap is a lightweight, less than 7-ounce product that's one size fits all, that fits over any existing football helmet. The Guardian Cap is currently used by the NFL, CFL, 90+% of FBS NCAA teams, and over 350,000 athletes around the world. We're excited to partner with Pure Athlete just to help grow the game of football and help allow these athletes to play the game they love without the repercussions. If you want to learn more about Guardian Caps, go to guardiansports.com and reach out to us from there.
Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pure Athlete. Jeff along with Britt and Brad, and we are going to do kind of a fun little one today with winning and losing, the good, bad, and ugly. But before we get to that, we catch up a little bit. What did you think about the all-star uniforms in the baseball game?
I have to say, I thought they're horrendous.
I mean, the kids like them. That's all what it's all about.
Do they?
So we were all together that night. We watched the first couple innings, and I laughed because we talked about that, and I get home, and my son, of course, I want to get one of those jerseys.
Oh,
exactly what you said. I'm like,
That's what it's all about.
I was actually talking to Mark DeRosa the other day about it, and he's like, I told Rob Manfred, just wear the unis that they play for.
Yeah, I'm a purist.
And so he said the talk has been, should we wear City Connect uniforms next year? And he was like, I understand that, but there's no gray City Connects because you only wear them home. So he's like, but it was definitely interesting.
I would like the commissioner to be honest and say, we're doing this because we can sell merchandise. So what's the bottom line?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
if anybody
100%,
doesn't think that, they're,
if he says no to the idea of wearing your own uniforms like it's always been, he needs to give the reason. Just say the reason is because we make money off of this, and the MLB needs money.
I know I'm being old school, but I do it's much easier to see who the players are when they're wearing their unis.
I'm with you, man. Wear those if you want during the home run derby and the workout day, or something like that. But it was a good all-star game, though. I thought, Skeens, of course, pitching, all that stuff.
He came through.
Besides looking like a Marlins home game, I thought it was great with the unis. College football starting up.
Yep. NCAA game is coming out this weekend. Yep. Everybody's excited about that.
Getting it for my birthday.
Are you really?
Yeah, I'm going to become a lot less productive this year. That's one of the things that's just going to happen. I love that game.
I can see Brad sitting there just gaming for hours.
It's the only game I ever played. I've never played any other video game. Yeah. So but I'm excited.
Yeah, my boys are all into it. They can't wait.
Yeah, that'll be good. We got the Olympics getting ready to start up too, which will be fun.
Yeah, next time we talk, we'll be in them.
Yep,
that'll be fun.
Yeah. What's the? Are you excited about the break dance? I think break dancing is the new sport.
Yeah, the rhythmic dancing.
No, but I think break dancing
is there really break
dancing?
dancing? You're kidding.
I know you were a big break dancer back in the day. So
yeah,
I mean,
that was a while ago.
Before we get to it, I'm curious. What is your favorite sport in the Olympics?
Oh, swimming. I think swimming is just. I loved basketball, but now, and I actually probably like basketball more because it's more competitive. But ever since the Dream Team, it just wasn't fun to watch because we were winning by 40. But swimming, it's usually the first big event. It's the first week. You're still excited about it, and it's just like. It's just a great sport to watch. I don't watch it any other time, really, unless your kids are doing it. But the relay races and swimming, it's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I'm all same. Swimming is a one. Did you go to swimming when it was here in Atlanta?
No, I went to baseball and track and field.
Okay,
when it was here in Atlanta.
I did track and field, basketball, and some gymnastics.
Yeah.
See, gymnastics is my favorite. I love watching it, but you'll laugh at this. When I was 12 years old when the Olympics were here, and my dad and Mom took each of me, my brother, my sister to one thing we got to pick.
Yeah.
What do you think I picked?
Gymnastics?
Ping pong.
Ping pong. Oh,
Yeah,
that's pretty fascinating.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
dude. I went and watched. I was all about ping pong,
Yeah,
so we went and watched. And of course, it was like, I mean, unbelievable watching them hit how far they do. So then you go home and try to do it, and you're horrible.
Oh no, that's amazing.
I loved watching it.
I tell you what, watching gymnastics in person is way harder than watching it. When you're
going
watching
on
on
at
TV,
once.
because they're
It's tough.
showing you on TV, what you want to see, but watching in person, there's so much going on. It's hard to
Well,
keep up.
I remember, and not trying to bag on University of Georgia basketball, even though I might be doing it a little bit. I've gone to a few of the Gym Dogs events up there before,
Yeah.
and that's about the only time Stegman Coliseum's packed.
Yeah.
I mean, they pack that thing out, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hear that's really fun.
All right, so what do you got teed up?
Yeah, we got a special episode today. So we're just the three of us, and we've got a topic that I think is an interesting topic because it's something that happens every single time you go to the ballpark, and that is somebody wins and somebody loses. And we're calling this episode The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Winning and Losing, because there's good aspects to winning and bad aspects in the way we approach it. Same with losing. And then, of course, we all know there's ugly episodes involved in both. So I thought maybe we just talk about some of that today. And so just start off, let's just jump in and talk a little bit about, what are some of the good things that come out of winning, and when should we emphasize winning? So let's talk about that.
I know it's a struggle for Jeff because he doesn't like to have scoreboards at little leagues, right? That's kind of like your thing.
Well, when you just said when you go to the
park.
park, someone wins, someone loses, I said, unfortunately, there's some leagues where everybody gets a trophy. And
Well,
everybody
that's
ties.
true. That's true.
Share what you're thinking because I know you're dying to talk.
Well,
about
I hate
this.
it. I told you. You know that. Like, you want your kids to realize that there's a winner, there's a loser. Now we talk about different ways to handle it. That's kind of what we're doing. But of course, you should always try to win. Every time you go out there, I tell any of my teams, anybody I talk to, you want that scoreboard to be in your favor. That's why you compete. That's why we have fun. But there's also, like we talk about it, it's actually the good, the bad, and the ugly. But you should always try to win.
When my kids were playing sports where they weren't technically keeping score, the kids kept score. The kids know who won even if the adults or the league was saying
Scrimmages, kids know that.
they keep track of it the whole game, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, soccer. They keep track of it. They know who wins and loses.
Yep.
They care, and that's not a bad thing that they care.
No. Well, there's a whole bunch of aspects of winning that are important too. And, ultimately, you have to learn how to win too. It's going to be important later. And there is a learning piece to learning how to win. We'll talk about learning how to win the right way. But if you never win, there's some things that don't work out very well either.
Well, and we always say this, especially for kids. If you're never winning, you're probably not going to like the sport as much, or you're not going to have as much fun. That's the truth.
I mean, winning's fun.
Absolutely. It builds confidence, man. It builds, the team unity, the team camaraderie. But again, you always say it, you got to be able to, you got to be able to lose too, and lose gracefully.
I mean, gosh, think about things in life where you don't keep score. I mean, you're keeping score at most things in life.
Yeah.
There's going to be a result. And whether you would define it as winning and losing, whether you define it as profitable, not profitable, whether it's sports, whether it's that's just, and maybe it's just the American way, I guess. But competition is part of life.
Yep.
And you have to, and how you obviously how you respond to winning and losing is key. But I mean, they keep score in life, and it's just kind of the way it is. And how you handle it is another question we could talk about. But yeah, I mean, if you're running a business, you're wanting to win at business, and how is that? You're wanting to make profits. You're wanting to do good, and so you're always keeping score. And so, yeah, it's really not a bad thing to want to win at a competition.
No, and I think that winning breeds motivation, and it breeds energy. And we talk, one of our pillars is belief. And if you never win, it's hard to continue to fuel belief. So winning builds confidence. It helps you believe, that you can get it done the next time. I mean, when I was with my boys and they win, it makes them want to go back out to the to the court the next day and, hey, I want to work on this because I want to get even better.
It reinforces the work you've done.
Creates energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, when you look at it and, we're talking kind of about the good, but I think you can start to talk about the bad too, is like, winning at all costs. And we talk about that. But I think that also gets a little different as you get older.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying even when you're in the pros, you win at all costs, injuring somebody or keep pitching them or playing 40 minutes the whole game in basketball. But I do think as you grow, of course, the emphasis on winning becomes more important.
Sure.
And that's why I always say with youth sports, I divide it in 3 different categories, man. And, I've always said really the youth, the young, then you get to that middle school and then the high school age. And it's like I always tell people, when you get to high school, like those coaches, you're putting your best people out there to win. What matters is winning. That's you put that over, a person's, for the most part, their feelings or whatever. You got to do what's best for the team to try to win. So, but at the end of the day, it's like anything. It doesn't mean that, you can be reckless.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, let's dig in a little bit, the whole winning at all costs thing, because we talk about that in a number of episodes. And what have you guys seen, that are examples? I mean, real examples. It's easy for people to say, oh, of course we don't want to win at all costs. But how does that really play out in youth sports? What have you seen? I'll share some thoughts as well.
I've seen a team throw a kid, for 120 pitches, in a tournament game to make sure that they advance, in a knockout round or whatever it is. And you're like, this kid's arm's falling off, but because you don't have anybody to come in and you're afraid that the guy coming in is going to, not be
lose,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, you're risking injury for some kind of, 10U championship.
And I think that's where Little League football, we talk about it, a kid, the best kid on the team who might just literally be the only guy that carries the ball. And if he carries the ball, we can beat the other team. So you continue to let him, and especially at a young age. And that's why I say you don't develop anybody else. And so I think that's where it comes in. Like, I think Jamal Crawford, who we had on, I loved how he talked about it. Like, we're continuing to develop these players, hoping that when they hit that high school level, they're going to know how to play together as a team. They're going to be able to do different things. And so, again, I think it comes down to what age are you? Where's your kid in the journey?
Yeah.
It's hard, though. It's hard when you're coaching youth sports because, like, let's say, for example, in basketball, you've got a kid who's obviously your most talented kid, and you look at and you're progressing. You could justify in your head, okay, well, we're now in the semifinals of this tournament. I should probably let he or she, take the majority of the shots because that's our best chance of winning. And in the back of your mind, you're going, oh yeah, but these other 4 kids or whatever's coming off the bench, they need to develop. But it's hard. It's hard, especially once you start advancing in a tournament, to think about. And these kids are wanting to win too, but you have to weigh that development versus, but that's another example of like letting one kid take all the shots basically in basketball because they're the best one.
Yeah.
So my boys were in a tennis academy, and I walked in one day, and the coach had like 30 kids standing around talking to him, and the coach is from a different country, and he's telling the kids, now, if you're playing and the opponent hits the ball, and and it's close to the line, it's out. If you don't know if it's in or out, it's out, which is the complete opposite of what I've always told them. If you don't know, you give it to your opponent. And then he says, and if the guy gets mixed up on the score that you're playing with, then you call the score in your favor. It's their problem if they can't keep up with it. And it's just like, winning is everything. Sacrifice your integrity for that. So, those kind of things you see.
Yeah.
And we saw cheating in tennis all the time.
I would imagine youth golf, you probably see it quite a bit too, man, in some of those tournaments. So, like you said, winning is important. You teach your kids to win, but at the end of the day, there's got to be boundaries.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the bad things. I mean, there's a bad way to win. There's a bad attitude that you can bring when you're winning, and it can breed arrogance. It can breed cockiness. I mean, we see bad winners. So I'm sure you probably saw plenty of that in your career.
Well, just in different sports, playing kids that, Again, I think the hard thing sometimes is you watch a kid out there and the way they act and you think, how are their parents okay with this?
Yeah.
I think that's what I struggle with is like, granted, he or she might be unbelievable. They might be great athletes, but at some point, don't you want your teach your kids that there's a right way to go about these things? And look, I'm not saying don't have fun, don't celebrate. I've told you this with baseball, man, baseball's changed so much. These kids have walkout songs and flipping bats at 10 years old now on home runs. That does not bother me.
Mm-hmm.
It really doesn't. It's the way that if you start to show up the other team,
that's
right?
that's the difference.
That's where I think as a parent now, for me, take the coach now of just watching my kids. It's like, have fun, celebrate. If it gets though where you're starting to show up the other team, then we're going to have issues.
Yeah, you see it. I was watching the wide receiver documentary on Netflix, and you see these NFL players when they win or when they're about to win, basically, gesturing to the crowd. Now, I'm sure those NFL visiting crowds are not the most friendly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they probably said something to players. But kids see that. Kids see, a guy waving goodbye to the crowd, a guy doing just gestures to the crowd after a win. And again, I think I don't mind the celebration. I don't mind when Jefferson does a gritty. I mean, I think it's hilarious. It's awesome, right? But like you said, showing up your opponent, acting like basically acting like a fool when you win, because like especially those close games that are such a fine line between winning and losing.
A lot of emotion.
Yeah, but I just think you're right. I think there's a distinction between having fun, celebrating, but making it. I know it's a win or loss, but making it personal, I guess, is kind of
and be able to take it if it's the other way.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's
tough.
what we said. Like, I'm all about celebrating, let's have fun.
Yeah.
But if the other team does that to you, you got to be able to, we didn't win this one, and you got to be able to take it. That's where you can't be a double standard.
Yeah. Matt Olson talked about that when
Yep.
we had him at our live event. We also did a whole episode on sportsmanship.
Yeah.
And a big portion of that was about how do you win and how do you celebrate without disrespecting your opponent.
Yeah, I told the story to many people at our school. Our basketball program used to be really, really bad. And when I first walked in our offices, we had sportsmanship awards all over the walls. and yeah, everybody was great about, you guys carry yourself so well. When you're getting beat by 30, everybody says that, right? And what was really cool is when we made our run to the state championship game, we finished runner-up in the state, and we won 30-something games. We still got letters from folks saying we really appreciate the way you guys carried yourself. Even when we beat you when we would beat them by 30, you weren't showboating, you weren't demeaning your opponent. You were playing a lot of different players. You played in a way that was unselfish. And so there's a way to win that I think can bring more honor obviously on God, more honor on your program. But like you go back to the point, it's really, I think it's coach led. The coach has to be like, this is not the way we're going to carry ourselves. And I think a parent has to tell the kid, this is not the way we're going to carry ourselves.
Yeah. And y'all didn't get the sportsmanship award, I'm guessing, because usually that goes to the last place.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we stopped. And like that was kind of like the coach was like, my goal is not to get the
Throw him a
sportsmanship
bone.
award this year.
Not want to put that up anymore.
The last thing we ought to talk about with winning, that's a bad aspect of a focus on winning, and we talk about this all the time, is when you compromise development in order to win. And that may be the biggest problem in youth sports at early ages, is you see coaches, that are so much about winning that they compromise development. And we've talked about that a little bit already.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's to me, that's one of the biggest problems. Like you said, as you get towards the high school level, more advanced, then yes, there has to be, your kids are you're developing, but you're well ahead of what you are when you're 10 years old.
I mean, if you're a high school coach, it's your job.
Yeah, to win.
You're getting paid. You're being paid to win.
Yeah.
But if you're a youth coach, you're a little league coach, even a travel coach. I mean, come on. That should not be what the parents are paying you, but they're not paying you for that.
Yeah.
But you're providing for your family as a high school coach and a college coach. You got to put the best players out there and win.
Okay, so we've established that everybody wants to win, and we ought to want to win. Is there a good side to losing? Is there a good aspect to losing?
Well, I think, look, nobody wants to lose. And as you said, if you continue to lose, usually that's not a good thing, because you're probably, your confidence is going to go down as a individual, but also as a team, not being able to do it. But I also think, again, like you said, you find out how hard does my kid want to work. If you're losing and you lose 3-4 games in a row, you should come out with a little bit of fire. You should want to come out and win. You should want to get to practice. You want to get better. And those are things I think that you can almost learn more from losing, because it's like, as a parent or as a coach, what is my team made of? What is my kid made of? And I think it gives you your answer, right? Does my kid care about this? Does it matter to them? Because if it doesn't, then again, I think, play the sport, have fun, but realize that my kid doesn't really want to pursue this. That's probably not what their dream is. But if it bothers them, I think you can learn a lot about losing, man, to have to continue to go out there and keep your head held high, play hard, don't give up, and that's,
this is life.
Absolutely.
This is, it's probably more important for us as parents to focus on teaching our kids how to handle losing and how to handle failure than anything else. Winning can be easy, to respond to. Losing is tough, but throughout all of life, learning to deal with adversity is key to living successfully.
Yeah, the one of the questions when I interview somebody that I always ask them is, tell me a time that you've lost.
Yeah.
And if they haven't had a time that they've lost, that concerns me. One is because that's unrealistic. Two is they're going to lose. They're going to fail. Tell me a time you failed. Tell me a time you've lost. And how did you react to it? And how did you respond to it? Because I don't want them learning how to do that when they're working for me. I want them to say, yeah, well, here's a time that I failed at this, or here's a time we lost in this situation, and here's how I responded to it. It's like you said, it's going to happen. Nobody goes undefeated for life.
Yeah.
And so how do you respond to that? Do you and how do you respond to it even when maybe it wasn't even your fault? Like one of your teammates did something that cost you. How are you a good teammate in that situation? But it's just life. It's so important in terms of just teaching you lessons.
Well, and we talk. I always like to try to say, take the experiences from it. I was on a plane a couple weeks ago, and y'all are going to make fun of me, but I love the movie Cool Runnings.
No,
remember Cool Runnings?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
with John King. Yeah. And but I love at the end he's talking to the captain, if you remember, for the last game, and he's like, "How will I know?" Like, he was basically asking him, "What if I don't win?"
Yeah. And
I remember he said, like, if you can't be enough without it, you'll never be enough with it.
Yeah.
And I always love that, because it's like, I think about I was in the World Series in 2010, we lost.
Yeah.
But still looking back, like, it wasn't about the ring. It was about the experience, man. Yeah. It was about playing in the World Series, competing at the highest level. And you know what? State championship rings and stuff like that. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know where some of them are. I think my mom has them, maybe. I'm going to be honest. But for me, it was the experience. I look back and think about the game, think about the fun moments.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is more important than at the end of the day that I won that game. Was it great? Yes. At the time, was it awesome? But it's the memories, it's the lessons learned. And so I think that's where, again, you can have it. Teach your kids to play hard, and you're going to win, you're going to lose.
Well, and there's so many examples, both team and individual, where you lose before you win.
Yeah.
So losing, motivates you. It teaches you to problem solve. It teaches you to realize, why are those guys better than me? And what are the things I need to work on? And we see so many teams that get to the World Series and don't do great the first time, and then the next time and the next time they come back and they win.
There's it's not as good as Cool Runnings, but there's a great documentary on ESPN called The Streak, and I would recommend it to anybody if you can find it. It wasn't a 30 for 30, but it talked about Brandon High School in Tampa, Florida, which had the longest winning streak in wrestling history, and it was the year, the pressure that these kids had to continue. They won state championships every year. That wasn't the issue, but to not get beaten. But man, there's so many great lessons in that, to watch how these kids handle. And I want to give the spoiler how they handled this year. But it was all about winning and losing. But these kids were inheriting that legacy of a school that had lost in like 20 years.
Wow. And
the pressure they felt from that, but the lessons they learned along the way. So just a side note, a pure athlete recommendation. It's called The Streak, and it's an ESPN documentary.
And Cool Runnings, if you get a chance.
Cool Runnings, I recommend that as well. Yes.
Well, let's talk about the bad side of losing. And a lot of that's obvious. It's not fun.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. But, it losing too much, is a lot of adversity. It really does cripple confidence. and it digs a hole that's just tougher to climb out of.
And that's where I think it's so important to have the right coach
Yeah.
out there coaching your kids. And why do you want it? Because if you do, just keep losing, you need a guy or a woman that is going to motivate these kids.
Yeah.
And to say, look, this isn't the end all be all. We're developing, we're getting better. And, that's what I'm saying. I think that's where coaches, parents are so vital to their kids' success, is that if you're on a team and it's not going great and you're getting pounded and you're doing this, it's being able to come beside them and encourage too, because nobody likes to lose at anything they're doing. Like you said, not just sports, but in life and anything. But, I think that's the most important. That's why we always talk about it. Have your kid on the right team, playing for the right coach, playing for someone that you believe in, because there are going to be times where that coach has to really speak truth into these kids.
Mm-hmm. I think, that whole aspect of the parent-kid relationship too, I mean, let's be honest, it's disappointing for parents to watch their kids lose as well.
Yeah.
And how do you compartmentalize that and not create relational tension between you and your child because you're disappointed with losing and they're already disappointed. And the last thing they need is to see is for their parent to pile on with that and bring their emotions to that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's super key to figure out how as a parent to be more about helping your kid get up than about your own sense of disappointment.
Yeah, I think about the show with Ted Lasso where he talks about being a goldfish, how they forget their memory like in 10 seconds, they don't remember anything. Yeah. But our kids are kind of like that. I mean, way more than us. I remember earlier this year, man, we lost a game on a Sunday night in a travel softball, the championship. We were up 5-2 and just melted and blew it. It was like Monday, I was all whatever, and like Monday morning on the way to school, like my daughter, 3 of the other girls I saw, they're like, hey, and they're great. Like kids bounce back. Yeah. Kids have a short memory fuse. So I think that's the great thing about losing, you can erase it from their minds pretty quick. But as a coach and as a parent, you have to do a good job of reading your kid.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I hear this a lot especially when they're interviewing athletes or somebody's taught a coach or a parent, someone athlete, they say, he or she is super competitive. They hate losing at anything. Yeah. Cards, video games, one-on-one, whatever. Is there a point as a parent that you should say, like, you need to chill about that? Like there's different levels of things that you should take serious, or do you think they should be competitive and try to win at every single thing they do? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely do. Because I hear that. Like,
I'll clarify a little bit. Here's what drives me crazy is when I had my company is I'd have employees that would die in a ping pong match, or they would kill themselves to win a 3-on-3 basketball game. But yet they weren't as competitive when it came to our job. I'm like, dude, you've got a sales goal, that you got to hit. How you're not as competitive at that as you are at winning a video game.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tell my kids is like, and also don't burn a relationship based off of winning a video game or a ping pong match, And so like just that kind of is a pet peeve of mine when they say, oh, he or she can't stand losing at anything. Like that's a noble thing the way it's being presented. Yeah. It just doesn't come across as noble to me.
And I think what we talk about, shouldn't everybody hate losing? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like if your kids play for the most part, they should hate to lose. But again,
like it's how you react to
absolutely.
losing.
Yeah, exactly. It's how if your kid gets in the car after a game and they've lost and throwing stuff, doing this 48 hours, won't talk. We have an issue.
Yeah. Or worse, they're doing it on the field after
well,
the game.
Yeah. And but again, that's where having the right coach, having parents to come beside the kids, you help them to realize there's certain ways to do this.
So let's talk about tiers, because everybody's kids, not everybody's, because some don't do it, but a lot of people who are listening here have kids that cry when they lose. So when is that appropriate? When should you nip that in the bud? Or is it always okay? What are y'all's thoughts?
You go first if you want on this one.
I mean, I didn't prepare for this question, but I don't think, again, there's a difference between a kid having tears because they gave it their all and they're disappointed that they lost the game. If they're having a meltdown, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But I think it shows that they care.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like I said, if they're playing an important game to them, and whether it could be a championship game or it could just be a regular season game or whatever, and they cry after the game, it shows it meant something to them. And hopefully they feel that way, not because in the moment they feel that way. Maybe I've worked hard all this season,
Yeah.
and I'm disappointed at the end of it, and I put so much into this. I don't have a problem with it.
No, it reminds me, I watched the Copa America final with Colombia and Argentina, and like those Colombia players were crying. Man, they gave everything they had.
Yeah,
and it was more of, we've put this journey in, we're doing this, kind of what you're saying, I think a little bit too, is like, if your kid's crying after every time they lose,
That's the
after
deal.
every game,
Yeah.
like this can't happen. You can't, every time you strike out, if you're crying,
Yeah.
like every time you miss a free throw, like you can't do it. And, in a certain age, when they're 5, 6, 7, I think you're more lenient.
Yeah.
But like, I remember telling our travel team this year with the girls, like, you're crying, you're going to sit down.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no crying in softball.
No crying.
Not like you said, like if as a team they lose a tough game and everybody's upset in a championship and you see they've put a heart, like I'm okay with that.
Well,
if a girl goes up and gives out 5 runs and she's crying on the mound, you're out.
Yeah, well, obviously you don't cry during the game because like we're still playing here, but after the game, I don't have a problem with it. Like if it's, not every single game,
Exactly.
but if
And
it
if
meant
it's
The
something.
size of the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Know the moment. If
Yeah.
it's last tournament of the year and you've played all year together and
I
stuff
mean, you see
like
pros cry. and
That's why I
stuff
said,
that.
like talking about Colombia,
Yeah.
that whole team was crying
Yeah,
right
no
there.
doubt.
But
Or if you're playing against a sibling, that's okay to cry if you're losing in the driveway.
Oh, I'm not going to comment on that. Oh, that's great. That's great. Talking a little bit more about winning and losing. Let's jump into the ugly a little bit, because we've all seen extreme examples that are super ugly. Any come to mind for you guys?
Gosh, there's like too many to name. I think in sports today, it's just there seems to be more winning ugly than winning not ugly, I guess.
How about in youth sports?
I mean, I think it comes back to our original conversation. I think it's gosh, if you win a championship or you win a big game, that should be enough to satisfy you. I think it should not be enough where you or not enough to where you still have to go demean the other team. The what is the gesture where the kids push their hands down, like when they
and
like,
they're small,
I'm higher than you.
Yeah.
Now that's usually after a play, but I think that's winning ugly.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if a guy, it's like, it's the old man talking to me, but if a guy puts up 30 or a girl puts up 30 in a game, why do they have to say anything?
Oh, I agree.
And if you win a championship and you get the ring,
Yeah, that's the disrespect.
just walk off and say, dude, there's in history says we won the championship.
I'll be honest, that's why I was a big fan of the Boston Celtics this year in basketball. Jason Tatum, those guys, like they played as a team, man. Like you watched them. There was no look at me, do this. Like that was a true team, and honestly, you see why they won because they played as a team.
Well, UConn did as well.
Danny Hurley, same thing with that. When you watch, I'll say when you watch South Carolina's women's basketball team, man, like it is about the team.
Yeah,
you watch that. They play hard. They don't have to do all this stuff. Like our showing is going to be going out there. I've told you this before. My dad used to always tell me, win with humility, lose with grace. Scott Rowland was one of my favorite baseball players because he had a home run, and every time he'd drop his bat and he put his head down and ran around the bases. Mm-hmm. Like there was no fist pumping. There was no, look at this. And again, the moment sometimes can be bigger, and your kid might get carried away. I get that. They're kids. They're going to have fun. They're going to make mistakes. But again, it's like you said, when it constantly happens, I think when it becomes – repetitive day after day, game after game, that's probably where you have an issue.
My pet peeve in youth sports was kids making excuses, when they lose. Mm-hmm. And kids make excuses because the parents make excuses. And, we were primarily an individual sport, and we'll talk about that in a moment, individual versus team. But your kid loses, there may be a reason but don't go tell the other parent, oh, your kid played great. I'm so sorry. My kid, they hadn't played a tournament in 2 months and it's first time back. And, God, they didn't get much sleep last night. It's just like, accept the loss and don't teach your kids to make excuses.
The best
just drives
one,
me crazy.
the best one I hear sometimes is like, man, that ref was horrible. And it's like, what was the final score? He lost by 32, and I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah.
That guy was that bad, huh?
Yeah.
So I agree. And that's what, win and get better, or win. And if you lose, keep working, get better.
Yeah.
So don't make excuses. Nobody likes anybody that makes excuses, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys got it.
So one last thing, and this is for parents that have multiple kids, but and in my case it was twins. One you're on your way home, one kid wins, one kid loses.
One kid gets ice cream and one doesn't. They'll play better.
Problem solved.
It's easy, yeah.
Come on.
But it is tough, Where do you draw the line? How much do you celebrate with one? How much do you lean into the one that's hurting? It's tough, and don't have to have twins to have to deal with that.
I mean,
Yeah,
gosh.
you had a bad card there, man. Sorry for you had twins and had to deal with that. But, most people have, say, on a Saturday, right? You have 2 or 3 kids. If you have 4 kids, they're all playing at some time throughout the day, and some are going to win, some are going to lose. And that's why I think each one is its own teachable moment, and like you said, with your twins, one lost, one won. Well, the one the one that lost, how did they play? How did they react out there? How did they do? The one that won, who did they play? I mean, that's the other thing we talk about sometimes too, right? You can play some teams sometimes that you're going to win even if you play bad just because your team's that much better. And you're going to play some games where your team plays awesome and you're just not as good as the other team. So that's where I think there's so many exceptions to the rule, with your kid. But I think at the end of the day, hopefully when they've won and lost and you're on the way home like that and you're with them, I'm sure it's easier said than done, but it's like, guys, this isn't the end of the world.
It's a great point you bring up in terms of the competition level too.
Yeah.
Now yours was different because you guys, your kids were in the same tournament, so it was all kind of even. But that's another great point about winning and losing is there's times when especially if your kids are playing or someone's playing in a game that they're playing a really, really, really good team that they probably don't have a chance of winning that game, but they're giving 100%. And that, to me, that's a win. But then there's other games where like that you did not give 100% because y'all had such an easy game.
Yeah.
And so the winning and losing is a little grayer there. The win is in the effort. There's a lot of things that go into that win. The win is obviously you want the scoreboard to show, but it's also like, did you bust your tail in that game and gave everything you got and it still didn't work out on the scoreboard? Look, I'm going to be happy with that's a win. Did you carry yourself in a way that was honoring God? That's a win. As opposed to the other way, like you may have played in a game where you didn't give 100% effort or you kind of gave half effort and you still won because the other team wasn't that good. So it's a little bit of a grayer, area. But when it comes to, that's, again, it comes back to life. As a parent, you just have to kind of balance where you don't want to lessen the joy of the kid that won, but you also want to be sensitive to the kid that lost.
And I think it's important too when you have multiple kids like that to make them go to each other's games and support them and become fans. Because to me at home, if you're teaching what you should be first, family comes first, and you should be happy for your sibling, one way or another. I say this all the time, man. My brother was awesome in supporting me all the time. And, he was in college. He wasn't playing any sports. He wasn't doing this, but he always was calling me, always coming home and was proud of me. And it's why we have such a good relationship now, and he's told me before there were moments of jealousy or like, man, I wish I could have done that. But at the same time, I think the way my mom and dad raised us, and I was always there supporting him. I followed him in numerous golf tournaments, man, walking 18 holes 2-3 days in a row. And so I think you look back to that, and I think my brother knows, like, man, my brother was there for me too.
Yeah,
that's
great.
So I think that's where it comes to. It's important to have, and we talk about it. That's why it's important to have breaks too, so your kid can go cheer his brother or sister on and be a fan, and that way you show unity as a family too.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Last question I'm going to ask you is, and I'm going to start with you primarily because the whole team aspect, you go 4 for 4 in a game.
Happy hit guy.
Yeah, you go 4 for 4, you hit a homer, and your team gets trounced. Is that a win or a loss?
That is, I'll tell you what, that is one of those tough deals, right?
Yeah.
And it's where it is, like, especially when you think about certain sports as you're working your way up, especially in baseball in the minor leagues. You know,
Yeah.
that was the toughest thing in the minor leagues, because you kind of realized early, like, losing doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Who's developing and who's not. So it was always, I never wanted to take that out of my thing. I always wanted to try to say, we got to win.
Yeah.
We got to do this, but it is tough. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's where it's like, hey, you know what? Guys on your team, girls on your team are hurting because of the loss, and they might've had a bad game. You know what? Put yourself aside for a while. Now you get in the car on the way home, call your dad, call your mom, you know, man, it was a great day for me. It was this and that. But that's where we talk about, right, the individual versus the team aspect. And at the end of the day, team, you know, is to me always going to trump that individual aspect. And I bet you could talk to this with talking to your boys. And I always feel like this with golf and with tennis. I always kind of hate it, because I always feel like there was never really that other person to celebrate with. You know, you think about it, you win the French Open, you fall down on the court and you're by yourself.
Yeah.
It's great because, you know, you control the narrative.
Yeah.
But man, when you watch a team sport win something together and it's that dog pile and it's everybody, there's no better feeling. So that's where I always say, like, you got to be able to come beside your teammates, man, and realize the moment. Be smart enough to understand, man, they had a bad game and they're hurting right now. Because you know what? That's going to flip, and it's going to be on the other hand. You're going to be that person that has a horrible game and you want someone to pick you up.
Yep. I love that. I think that's a great place to stop. You know, even this weekend, parents, people are going to win, people are going to lose.
Absolutely.
Teachable moments for both.
And you know what? Tell your kid at the end of the day, compete, right? That's what we want for our kids. Win, lose, anything. I'd rather see my kid compete and lose than not compete and win and they learn nothing. So have fun playing sports. It's a great journey. It's what we love. It's why we're doing this, why we're 80 episodes into it. But I think that's the number one thing. Just compete. And you know what? Scoreboard's going to read win some days, lose some days. And if there is no scoreboard, get your kid out of there. Hope you enjoy this episode. Hey guys, Jeff Rancourt here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.